What's up, everybody? This is Sporta on the air. You have Zach and David here. We got a lot to catch up on. A lot in the NHL, a lot in Major League Baseball, a little bit of everything else. Obviously, you're Dodgered out. Let's start with Major League Baseball and the trade deadline acquisitions. So many big deals, so many. I think the biggest being the Dodgers pulling right out from the Padres' nose Max Scherzer and Trey Turner for essentially, a couple prospects, but no names. Just it seemed like a one-sided deal. Do you think this deal helps the Dodgers out in the long run?
I think the biggest prospect for me that I didn't sort of like losing was Joshua Gray. He was potentially supposed to be something pretty big. But when it comes to the deal, I was very surprised to hear that Trey Turner was packaged into it.
Yeah.
And Scherzer, I know, was on his way out. I know a bunch of the Padres were very close to getting him. And I don't know how the deal fell through. I looked through it for a bunch of times. But this deal says two things. Trey Turner may take over for Corey Seager next year because Corey Seager's deal is up. And with the acquisition of Scherzer, does that speculate or confirm that Bauer's not coming back?
Right.
So that's what that deal tells me. But, if anybody made a monster splash, obviously my Mets, I'm happy that they got Javier Baez.
Right.
And Trevor Williams. But with this one, they're so deep. I'm looking at this team and I'm like, I think you guys might be better than the team who won the previous year. Like on paper, they just got to execute.
Yeah. Like you said, the speculation was that San Diego had a done deal for Scherzer, and that was the reports. And then, maybe an hour later, it was the Dodgers had the deal with Trey Turner mixed in. And as you said, it could be the end of Seager here unless he takes a team-friendly deal. And if that's the case, you're probably looking at, I don't know who you would move at that point, but Turner.
Maybe Cody Bellinger, because he's batting like $156 right now.
Yeah, he doesn't seem the same since he came back from his injury. He's not. But it's like you said, it signals to me Bauer's not coming back at least this season.
Looking more and more that way.
Yeah. It's been silent on his front though. That's always good. No news is good news. But I think even if he's cleared, I think the Dodgers will still tell him to stay away at least for the rest of the season. Big deal. Someone else in the division made a splash, and the Giants went out and got Chris Bryant from the Cubs. Cubs had a fire sale.
They got rid of everybody.
What do you think Chris Bryant does for the Giants, and do you think he potentially signs on there this year during free agency, or does he look elsewhere?
It's pretty much open season for him. If he does really well with the Giants and the way that the Giants are playing, I wouldn't see any reason to leave. The Giants are on the up and coming. They've been probably the biggest surprise in the NL West. And I will say, if he does go elsewhere, if anybody's looking to fill a third base hole, the Mets, they got JD Davis at third. But if he wants to go to an even bigger market in New York, that's an option. I know the Yankees, that could be a thing. But I could see him staying. He could sign maybe a 1, maybe 2 year deal, could be longer, but it just depends on how he does.
Yeah. I see it. I think this is a rental. I don't think he's going to resign with the Giants unless they come close to winning it this year. It's tough, but like you said, he's also stated he wants to play with his buddy Bryce Harper in Philly. So I think he moves back east after this year, but the Giants got themselves a hell of a rental to solidify at least a decent playoff run. speaking of your
Mhm.
Mets, they acquired Javi Baez.
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
was really good. They sent Armstrong um, to the Cubs, but they also received Williams and Cash. So
Yeah.
it Baez again. Baez is a free agent after this season. So
Mhm.
and then they got Lindor. Kind of,
Yeah.
he's taking Lindor's place until at least Lindor gets healthy. And then, as you
Mhm.
said, Williams, I think, gives them depth until Syndergaard and DeGrom come back healthy. And even then, you're still looking at a deep rotation for them. Uh,
Yeah.
do you? And I said this on previous podcast. I think your Mets are viable World Series contenders. Do you think this solidifies that, or do you think they're still missing something?
They're still missing pitching parts. And I think right now the Mets, because now that they've lost 3 in a row, and I'm not saying that the bats are, they're giving them runs. No, they're 100% in a pitching bind. Like not having DeGrom. I just got an alert saying that DeGrom is going to have another MRI here in the next 10 days because he's not going to pitch until almost the end of the month. Then Carrasco comes back, had a decent outing. But I think the main thing, and like I said before the season even started, it's it's a building year. You
Yeah,
guys may not get very far in the postseason, but this is building to being a competitive team. And the NL East is so weak. I mean, you look at all the teams that are in that division. I mean, one team will get hot, then they'll be in the crapper the next week.
right.
But for the most part, I mean, I'm happy that they're in first, but there's really no team that's really competing with us in that division. I mean, Atlanta, retooled their outfield.
Yeah,
With
yeah.
getting a few guys. Oh, that guy from at Miami. I can't think of his damn name.
Yeah, yeah.
But
It's not
yeah, I
Marte.
mean,
Marte went to the A's, but I know who you're
yeah.
talking about. Yeah, they picked up some pieces that can help them out. And they obviously couple weeks before they acquired what was his name, Jock Peterson from the
Mhm.
Cubs. They sold him, so like they're still missing pieces. I think the Mets still have that division. I'm not going to say locked up, but pretty well in hand. It's theirs to lose.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm trying to think what other big moves there were. Like,
Well, to cap off what we were talking about, I think the Mets currently right now they're basically in survival mode.
yeah,
It's we got to survive. We got to do a lot of bullpen games. Even though we have Cookie back, which is great, but the problem is you can't just rely on him and Stroman and Taiwan Walker because Taiwan Walker has
right,
been struggling bad. Like since his
yeah,
last 2 starts, he hasn't done well. Stroman's been kind of hit or miss. We just need those two dominant guys back. And I feel like if the Mets just survive and get to September at least, and nothing goes wrong with DeGrom, nothing goes with Noah Syndergaard, everybody's on track to come back, then we could be having a completely different conversation. And they just come back and they're dominant. I mean, but looking at the National League right now, the best team is, I would say, the Dodgers and the Giants, like
right.
hands down in
Yeah,
the National League.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think they're miles above everybody right now. San Diego is close, but they've fallen into inconsistent play. Um, you
Tatis
know,
is hurt too, right?
yeah, yeah, he's out for a little bit. Um, yeah, it's Atlanta. Atlanta's dealing with injuries. The Mets, like you said, are struggling with pitching right now. They've been inconsistent since
Mm-hmm.
the All-Star break. The Cardinals very quietly have been making some moves
Mm-hmm.
to improve, which is, you expect because St. Louis is normally there, especially with the Cubs having a down year. Pittsburgh got rid of some big
Mm-hmm.
pieces and sent them out. Um, on the American League
Adam
side,
Frazier.
yeah, yeah. Frazier, Richard Rodriguez went to the Braves. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sterling Marte for Luzardo, essentially straight up A's to Marlins. Feels like the A's kind of gave up on their young pitcher for Marte. I don't think it helps now. I think that's a long run piece for them.
Yeah.
the big one for me was Rizzo to the Cub, or Rizzo to the Yanks, and Joey Gallo to the Yanks.
That's
Yanks,
big.
I don't think they'll ever learn that you can have all the power in the world, but come postseason time, if you don't have pitching, you're not going to win. They're just trying to outpower everybody.
Yeah. I don't understand that, because I feel the same way about the Angels. You know, the Angels, it's like, oh, we'll sign Rendon. We got Shohei Ohtani. We got Mike Trout, who's soon to come back. We got this new kid, Jared Walsh. You know, I mean, you can have the best lineup in baseball, but if you don't have pitching, you're not going to win very many games. Well, hitting wins you games. Well, your pitcher also has to keep you in it.
Yeah,
so,
they do.
You know, but yeah, the Yankees, I see them going out. I see the Astros beating them, or the Rays. I'll go as far as to say the Rays, because right now, the wild card's looking right now. The Yankees are 3 games out of the wild card, and Boston and Oakland hold that spot. So, and right now, Houston's leading by a lot, Tampa, and then you got Chicago, who's another team that I feel is the American League's going to be really tough come postseason.
Yeah. The gap isn't as big, where it's like you can say the Astros and the Red Sox, and then kind of like right underneath there you have the White Sox, the A's if they get hot, and they usually do about this time of year. You know, it's funny. The Astros and the Mariners made a trade, and I was at these games. So there was one. Mariners came back. Dylan Moore grand slam won the game. That night, the next day, the Mariners trade probably the best closer in the game this season in Kendall Graveman to the Astros for Toro and Joe Smith. And then I went to the game that day as the trade happened, and I can tell you that the Mariners fans were upset. The team looked deflated on the field. And the GM, Jerry DiPoto, just came straight out and was literally like, this move will make sense in the future. And other than this year, Graveman really hasn't been anything special. I like Toro from the Astros. I think he's a young kid. He's only played a handful of games, and he's been doing really well since his arrival. But the Astros solidified their bullpen with Graveman, and I think that just makes them even more dangerous in the upcoming postseason.
Yeah, the Astros, I would say, like, the small, tiny moves that they've made have made them a contending ball club, considering, you know, everybody counted them out last year. I think they had an easier road to the postseason. I don't think they were really tested. But this postseason is really going to test a lot of teams, and including the Dodgers. And, you know, I'm still praying and hoping for that. If the Dodgers don't get to the division, which they're only 3.5 back, if they somehow win the division, we're either going to have a Dodgers-San Diego wildcard game, or we're going to have a Giants-Padres wildcard game. And I mean, that's exciting either way. And I mean, but, you know, Milwaukee, I mean, there's really nobody that's that hot in that division. I mean, you can argue, you know, St. Louis or Cincinnati, but Cincinnati's, again, they're another hit or miss ball club right now. So
it's and they didn't make too many moves at the deadline to get better.
No.
We talked about the Cardinals getting sneaky good. They went out and acquired J.A. Happ and Luster to kind of bolster their pitching. You know, it was a fun time at this trade deadline with the big names that were thrown out there. Like we said, the Cubs went into full sale mode.
Tank.
Just get rid of everybody.
Nationals too.
The Nationals, yeah. The Padres acquiring the kid from the Pirates, and then, you know, it was fun to watch. It was one of the deadlines when I wasn't sitting there going, oh, I expected that one. You know, it was a bunch of holy shit. We got Trey Turner with Max Scherzer for nothing.
Yeah,
cool. We'll take it.
Yeah.
But yeah, baseball's been fun since the break and since the deadline. it is about that time where teams kind of lock it down and start trying to win divisions and securing their spots for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come down to the wire for divisions, especially the Dodgers Giants. I think is going to come down to the wire, and man, that's going to be fun to watch because
Yeah.
both those teams have been great this season. For as good as Buster Posey's been, Yastrzemski's been under the radar. You add Chris Bryant into that mix, the Giants are going to be a tough out for anybody this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, let's get in now that we've knocked out baseball tonight. Who you got, Astros or Dodgers?
Oh, Dodgers. I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be 5-4. I
Okay.
think it's going to be really close. And I think Scherzer's on the mound today. So,
yeah. It's a 2-game series. I want to say the Dodgers are going to take both, but those Astro fans, they're going to be out in attendance, and I've already seen on Twitter that a lot of them are at the park getting ready, and we got our Dodger fans getting ready to boo. I do think the Dodgers have the better pitching. I think that's what's going to get them through, and I say the Dodgers sweep the 2 games, but again, very close, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, the previous meetings, the Dodgers smoked them at 9-2. And then the game after that, that's the game that Bauer pitched. The Astros won 5-2.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if they split it, I mean, this could be a potential World Series matchup.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that excites me. And I would be turned gray by the end of that series if that's something that's even remotely possible again. And I was wishing for it last year. I was like, man, nothing would be more greater if they were to rematch again and play against each other, because that would be something. And now, especially in front of fans, I mean,
right,
that could be incredible.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Like, that's the matchup I want as a Dodger fan. Is I want the Astros, I want the Dodgers. If it's not the Dodgers, then I want it to be the Red Sox so we can get redemption for 2018.
Mm-hmm.
It's all fun, but NHL, a lot has happened in our last week's hiatus. We've had the expansion draft, the entry draft, and free agency. Let's start with the expansion draft and just some of the big names that the Kraken took. Obviously, they didn't take many, and they got a lot of flack for it. They went with, I guess, a strong D expansion draft. They really wanted to solidify defense. Mike Giordano being that guy, the leader. They picked the Fleury brothers, Cale and Hayden, Jamie Alexiak. I think it's Alexiak.
Yeah, then you got Adam Larson on the back end to help with Giordano. So,
yeah. Offensive wise, on their forwards, Jordan Eberle, I think, was a good pickup. Jonas Donskoy, Yanni Gord. But other than that, offensive, they're missing. I think they're missing the guy offensively. I don't think they have. Some of those guys I think can be 20-goal guys, but I don't see anyone on that roster that's a 30-goal guy.
I think it's going to take a lot of development time. I think it's going to be a lot of feeling out the room. To me, the biggest signing that they did, and I was a bit surprised by it once free agency opened up on the 28th, was to see Grubauer sign with them. And when he, quoted that, I want to do what Marc-Andre Fleury did. And I was like, that's cool, but you guys need some goal scoring. So, I mean, I don't know if it was exactly smart for them to go all in on RFAs and, UFAs, but I mean, only time's going to tell. And within that division, I still see the Kraken probably finishing maybe second or third, I think when you boil it down, Vegas is obviously going to be at the top. Which leads me to, how do you feel about Fleury getting moved?
Someone had to get moved, man. Fleury made I thought in my mind it's you move Panda move Robin Leonard, keep Fleury on for 2 years, and let the young kid Logan Thompson learn from him.
Mm-hmm.
But Fleury was making $7 million. We needed cap space. We've created a little bit of cap space. We now got Tuck on long-term IR, which is going to help even more.
Mm-hmm.
We still don't have our number one center. We don't have a top-line centerman. And, obviously we're still, as much as McCrimmon says we're not, we're still in for Eichel. All talks there. As soon as Buffalo okays the surgery, it looks like Vegas might put a package together for him.
Yeah, we got to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. No, I know that this is a business. I love Fleury. I loved him when he was on Pittsburgh. I thought they treated him wrong near the end of his time there. He came to Vegas. He did so much for our community in Vegas. And then all of a sudden, I know that his agent says that he found out through Twitter, but that's what happens when the NHL has leaks in their organization. It was with the expansion draft. Picks were leaked beforehand. The Vegas management has come out and said that there were talks with Chicago. They told Fleury about the talks, but they didn't say that they traded him yet. And then obviously trade goes through, leaks come out. I'm interested to see him in the all red because you know how he likes to match his pads to his team. I think that'll be really cool. Blackhawks made some really good moves to get better. But no, I thought he was going to retire a Golden Knight, and it's sad to see, but it's part of the business. So I mean, yeah, it sucks. I'm glad I never bought a Fleury jersey. But yeah, I'll probably go out and buy one just because I might be able to find one at a decent price.
I think the most important thing from this deal is that, and a lot of people were speculating this, including me. Some people, and I don't believe this for 1 second, some people think that Marc-Andre Fleury sabotaged the Knights when he made that mistake against Montreal. I don't believe that.
No.
And, I think that when it came down to it, I think that it was poor coaching on the head coach who used to be the previous coach of the Sharks. And I never thought he was a good coach. I thought he was okay.
Right.
I don't think Jared Gallant would have made that move. I think he would have stuck with one guy and said, all right, this is what's working. We're not going to go back and forth and hope and, that this is going to turn our season around. But to see Fleury upset with the move and saying, I wanted to retire, he knew that there was a possibility. And I think the thing that the media said too much of was that, he didn't know. No, he knew some type of aspect that there's a possibility that I get moved.
Right.
And when he came out yesterday and said, yeah, I'm going to play for Chicago, I was excited. I was like, you have a team that's been rebuilding for the last 3 years. They're rebuilding their back end with Seth Jones. And you guys got rid of Duncan Keith. You got rid of Brent Seabrook. It's going to maybe take a year, but I could see him playing for the Blackhawks. If he does great things, he could play with them for the next 2 years if he's willing. So I think I agree with you. It's a part of the business.
Yeah. And I understand the people in Vegas got attached, especially after, the shooting before the season and how Fleury was the face of that franchise and he was the first face of the franchise. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
But that's new hockey fans for you. They don't understand this business yet. We'll wait and see how many of those fans stick around when Vegas goes through losing seasons. You know what I mean?
I think that's the one thing my wife and I have talked about. I'm like, I can't wait until Vegas is going through what every single NHL team goes through, and they haven't done that yet.
Nope.
And once they do, that's where you're really going to tell who the real fans are, and versus the ones who just hopped on the bandwagon because the Ducks are doing terrible or the Kings are doing terrible. And it's a part of the business. I get it.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. It's funny because with Fleury, after I was kind of hoping that if he did get traded, he would get traded back to the Penguins just for retirement reasons.
Right.
But I do want to see him play. I think he's one of the most fun keepers to watch.
Mm-hmm.
He's willing to take those risks that other keepers aren't. He's super athletic compared to a lot of other keepers. And you know, yes, he made a mistake in the Montreal game, but we had chances to win that game beforehand. We just couldn't score. You know,
Right.
they shut down Mark Stone and Pacioretty, and we just couldn't get going. So, you know, I don't blame that on him. It happens. You gotta be able to, you know, wash it off.
I think I'll say one last thing on this whole thing is that I think one of the biggest things that makes it worse that when he did get traded was that the GM and the president said, well, you know, he was loved by fans. You know, he was the face of the franchise. Me personally, I would have moved Robert Leonard.
Right.
I would have moved Robert Leonard. I would have moved him because he's not consistent.
Right.
You know, I'm not saying Marc-Andre Fleury has been consistent through his whole career, but you look at his resume and you're just like, yeah, he's that guy.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, Leonard to me is when he's hot, he's very hot.
Mm-hmm.
But when he is not hot, he has those stretches where it's 4 or 5 games in a row where he can't stop anything.
Mm-hmm.
In Vegas's defense, other than Alec Martinez, they're not a defensive-minded defense. You got Shea Theodore, who's an offensive-minded defenseman. Pietrangelo, who's an offensive-minded defenseman. Like, you can't have that because Leonard doesn't move. He's not an active guy. Fleury is what saved them a lot of issues.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll be interesting this year. I still think they win the division, but I think they're going to be winning games 5-4, 5-3, and they're just going to be outscoring everybody.
Except when they play the Ducks, they're going to lose or win 8-0. It's going to be like a freaking shooting gallery.
So with the Ducks, do you think Colorado makes a move for Gibson now that Grube is gone?
It makes sense because, you know, I've said, you know, with Dostal being in San Diego, he's one of our young upcoming prospects. It makes perfect sense because, you know, you have a guy who's in his prime. The return for him could be massive.
Yeah.
You got Raquel in a contract year. You got Hampus in a contract year. And now with Seth Jones setting the market for $9.5 million, which I think is way too much money.
So overpaid.
So overpaid for 8 years.
Yeah.
I mean, when he's done, he's going to be 36.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to be begging to get rid of him by the end of that contract. That's crazy. And
yeah.
But I think with Colorado, that's the deal that makes the most sense. He's not going to want to go to Buffalo, even though he doesn't have a no move or no trade clause in his contract.
So they could send him wherever they get the best deal. Yeah.
Right. And that's one thing I say that, you know, if you are going to go in on Jack Eichel, which that I think is dead. I don't think that anybody's going to go and get him right at this time because of what's going on in Buffalo. Right. I think and both parties are in the wrong. I mean, that's one thing I do want to say about that matter. But with Gibson, I feel like that's the deal that makes the most sense to me is because Colorado's in trouble. Like they really are.
Yeah. Colorado, I mean, they signed Cale Makar, so they solidified their defense a little bit more, but man, it's they're going into that. I think they're going into the Central Division.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas, the Blues, Minnesota. It's not going to be an easy walk for them.
Watch out for Arizona.
Oh, they made some moves, but I don't think they made those moves.
No, certainly not.
Some other big deals that we had going on. Brandon Saad signing with the Blues. Corey Perry taking a $2 million deal to go to Tampa Bay. If you can't enjoy them.
That's something I got to ask you, okay? I mean, Montreal has dismantled everything. Denault went to the Kings, which was massive for the Kings.
Big.
Carey Price just had hip surgery. God knows when he's going to come out.
Probably done for 6-7 months, yeah.
Yeah, Shea Theodore's gone. He said, I'm not playing this year. I'm done. And, not retired, but just I'm done for this year.
Yeah.
Corey Perry goes to the Tampa Bay Lightning, which I think is so smart of him. And he's only getting paid $1 million per.
Yeah.
which leads me to Getzlaf's deal. The 1 year I don't have a problem with. The 4.5 is the problem I have with it. And it pisses me off because when I see guys like Perry who have been in multiple Stanley Cup finals now, he only takes $1 million. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, come on.
It's going to be hard for Tampa Bay to three-peat, but I think they still have the talent to do it. And I think when you got Vasilevsky, you're always there. It's tough. And then Getzlaf signing that deal, I was like, wow, they really paid him that much to essentially
crazy
be a locker room issue, holding these guys back. But hopefully,
don't tell that to Ducks fans. You better be quiet on that one.
Hopefully he just gets his points, gets the record, and then decides to call it a day. Someone's, do I have it? Yes, I do have a YouTube channel. Our lovely commenter, it is the This Is Sporta podcast on YouTube. If you do look it up, that is where this comes from. I also have a beard channel. If you like taking care of your beard, I have one of those too, but I'll talk about that later. Yeah, man. So one of the big deals was Landeskog. Landeskog was the big free agent this year. I was kind of hoping Vegas would have gone after him, and because he said if I don't resign with Colorado, Vegas, Tampa Bay, or Florida, and I was like, cool, man, that's a top line center. Let's go for him. We kicked Fleury out, made room with Tuck on the IR. Let's go get him, and then he signs, huge deal to stay 8 years, 8 year, $56 million. But they kept their captain. So I'm kind of sad there. The biggest deal that baffles me is the Ovi deal.
It's way too much money.
5 years,
dude.
47, 42 million, something like that. Like,
it's crazy. Here, let me pull that up real quick. That was one I was like, whoa. He's gonna be 41.
Yeah.
At the end of that deal, and that's insane. Like, oh my God.
That's crazy to me. Like, and in basketball terms, Chris Paul literally just signed a deal. Like, he opted out of his player contract with the Suns and re-signed. By the time his contract is done, he's going to be 40 years old, and they'll be paying him $44 million for that year.
Oh, man. I saw that deal and I was like, dude, so I got Ovi's deal up. It's almost 12% of their cap.
Jesus Christ.
It's $9.5 million per. He's got a no move, no trade clause, the whole shebang. And he gets a signing bonus of $4 million this year. Next year, it's $9 million, $11.5 million, $6 million, then $4 million at the final year of a grand total of $47,500,000. That's insane.
That's crazy.
Like, he's not putting up the numbers that he did.
Yeah. I'll be okay with that contract as long as he comes out in full Ovi gear. I'm talking mirrored shield, white gloves. I want him to wear the white pants from the Capitals debut.
He's got to. Yeah.
I want the Ovi drip. Yes, Pittsburgh. We will be talking about Evander Kane in a little bit. We do have some thoughts on that whole situation. Let's see.
But yeah, to sum up the whole Ovi thing, and that's where I got scared as a Ducks fan. I got really scared because I'm like, is this what Getzlaf is looking for? Is this why they haven't reached a deal? Because if you watch his interview on the AnaheimDucks.com, he says, I wish this deal could have gotten done sooner. I wish that we could have reached something, sooner rather than later. And I'm like, I think that he was looking for a multi-year deal.
Right.
And they're like, no. And he had the opportunity to go elsewhere and kick tires with other teams. And Boston Bruins were very close, I heard.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's tough, man, because I would have I if he would have said, "Hey man, like 1 year, 2 million," I would
Cool.
have signed that line.
Yeah.
I'd have been like, yeah, that there you go. But 4.7, I think
Oh,
they're
4.5.
4, yeah,
Yeah.
4.5, I think is literally
Yeah.
all
That's like,
it's appeasing him. It's saying, "Hey, look, that's what you want for 1 year. We'll give it to you. Please just go away after this season."
yeah. See, this is where I'm going to segue into the whole Getzlaw thing. I mean, right now the Ducks have a projected cap space of 19,100,000, and that's without the 5 qualifying offers that we just sent out a week ago. And people are saying that, yeah, but we have all this money. I'm like, that's money about to be spent.
Right.
So we may be lucky and only have 7-8 million left in cap space. But then days later, Getzloff gets the no move clause added to his contract. And I lost my mind. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I think, and again, it's a farewell season. I
Right.
have a feeling it's going to be that, which is fine with me because I do want him to reach 1,000. I want him to break the franchise points. Fine, whatever.
Right.
But
100%.
the thing that scares me, and I said it in my video, if you guys are not following me on YouTube, I'm Ducks Game Day Breakdown. I talk about all Anaheim Ducks. I'm scared that he doesn't know what his role is because I'm afraid he's going to take away that valuable ice time. And a lot of people are giving him the benefit of the doubt, like, oh, he's doing this with this guy and you grooming them. We don't know that.
Right. No, we don't.
We don't. We're not in that locker room. We're not talking to him every day. But that's the thing that scares me is that I have a feeling that he's gonna expect to be that top line guy, and they're gonna persuade it and make it look like, oh, he's grooming them.
Right.
But then last thing about this is that I think the Ducks and Samueli and Bob Murray have no backup plan. So they're like, okay, we'll give him what he wants, and then we'll see how it works out. Because that's how we've been the last almost 3 years.
Yeah. It's yeah, Bob Murray, he's a piece of work. But
Yeah.
onto let's get into the two players in the NHL that have major stories right now. Number one, Jack Eichel.
Yeah.
Essentially his agent came out and stated that that the GM and the management is going against the Buffalo medical staff, saying that Eichel should have the surgery. And the longer that this goes on, the more or the worse that it gets for Eichel. Um, Basically said if they have the surgery now, he's ready to go for the season. And Buffalo controls what he does because they have him under contract. He can't have surgery without their okay. So it's I don't know. I don't see this playing out well for Eichel.
I don't either because I read through the entire article of what the agent said. And what I take from it is that both of these parties need to shut up. Like, you need to stop airing out what's being discussed, what's being talked about between Kevyn Adams and the agents, and Eichel needs to shut up too. Like, I understand what's happening in Buffalo is not okay. Like, I understand that you want to have this surgery that no other NHL player has ever had surgery on, but you need to kind of like just keep a lid on it and just see how it plays out. Apparently, per Kevyn Adams or per the agents, is that he can play, but he wants to get this surgery just as a precaution. That's what, I read about too, is that, okay, so if you get this surgery, you're still going to be out for quite some time, which is something that should be factored into the trade. And I think Kevyn Adams, and that's where he's being stubborn because he's like, I got your ink right here on the dotted line, and I basically have your balls in a sling.
Yeah.
So we're not just going to give you up for nothing, which I totally get. But if he's not happy, you obviously tried to make him happy and it didn't work.
Right. Yeah. He's 3 years into an 8-year, $80 million deal. So he's got 5 left. Again, like you said, if he's not happy, what are you going to do? Put him on the fourth line and just roll him out there so he can skate a little bit? Are you going to healthy scratch him, you're still going to have to pay him 10 million a year. Like
Yeah.
it's not a good situation for the team, nor is it a good situation for Eichel. I hope it gets resolved before the season. But until it does, we're all speculating. But onto another situation with one of my favorites, Evander Kane.
Is he really?
No.
Okay.
No. First of all, before we get into what's going on, I want to go through his other couple mishaps. So, in 2016, in July of 2016, he was accused of assaulting a 21-year-old woman in a hotel room. Basically met her in a club, said, "Do you want to go to a party?" Took her to the hotel, beat her so bad that her cuts needed stitches and she needed surgery, cosmetic surgery to help her face. Okay. Not even a month later, in August of 2016, he pled not guilty to criminal trespassing, 4 counts of non-criminal harassment, got into a fight with a bouncer, grabbed a woman by a throat, tried to force her into a car, and then there's a second report saying that he grabbed a woman inside the club and tried to force her outside. And that's when the bouncer jumped in and they got into a fight. 2019, sued by the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas after walking out on over $500,000 of debt. Basically, they gave him markers. And for those that aren't familiar, markers are extended currency, essentially, that you have to pay back to the hotel and casino. They're given to high rollers or people of prominent standing. And essentially, he walked out without settling his markers, saying, "Hey, this is the payment plan I'll do." Instead, just walked out, left. So he walked out. January 11th, 2021, filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Now, I'm not familiar with what Chapter 7 is. I know there's 7, 11, and 13. 7 is the most common. But he claimed he was $26.8 million in debt.
Yeah.
Then just recently, as of last month, his current wife, soon to be ex-wife, claims that he gambled on his own team to make money to pay back his debt, lost games on purpose, claims that he is in Europe partying lavishly with a mistress while she's being asked to sell her wedding ring to buy baby formula, and their house is being taken. So Kane is 3 years into a 7-year deal for $49 million. And according to Cap Friendly, he's made over $56 million. So I don't know where to begin with this whole situation. Let's go with the Pete Rose aspect and the gambling of it all. Do you believe that he bet on not only NHL, but his games in particular? And do you think he threw games?
I mean, it's a possibility. I mean, I don't know why somebody, and this is one thing I want to clear up for our viewers and everything. You have to look at it from both sides. Okay. We're not in Evander Kane's personal life or anything like that. So to completely blame the wife and say that she's crazy because they're getting a divorce and maybe because she doesn't like that, we don't know that. We don't know the state of what's going on with her. So I just wanted to clear that up. What I'm taking from this is like, man, I wish I would have paid more attention when he played against the Ducks, because when I watched him play against the Ducks, he played good. Like, I don't think there was one time where I'm like, oh yeah, he's having an off game. What's going on with him? But I mean, it's a possibility. And I mentioned that in my video about Evander Kane, was that it reminds me of the Pete Rose thing, even though Pete Rose managed a bet when he was managing, not when he was a player. But you know, this is a guy who puts up 45, 50 points a season. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, and this goes all the way back to, you know, to the Atlanta Thrashers days with him and Dustin Byfuglien, is that, you know, he had problems with him and,
Right.
not showing up to games when they moved to Winnipeg and then wanting to, get shipped out of Winnipeg the first month. I
Yeah.
mean, this is a guy that looks for conflict, and I don't know if he feeds off of it. I don't know if he enjoys it, but it sure as hell seems that way.
Yeah. And there's already been statements from the locker room. Brent Burns has stepped up and said that he doesn't want Evander Kane in the locker room. There have been multiple player sources saying that he's not welcome at team facilities.
Yeah, I read that today.
It's it's not as bad as the Bauer situation because we know Bauer is what he's being accused of isn't the same thing, but these guys, and this stands true for most hockey players. Most of these guys are upstanding, moral guys with high ethics, and they don't play when it comes to disgracing the crest on that chest or the NHL crest in general.
Mm-hmm.
I I don't know if he bet on games. I wouldn't put it past him when you're $26 million in debt and you've made 56 million over your career. You're talking that you've now spent roughly $80 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it might drive you to do something stupid. There were a couple games that I saw where against Colorado where he didn't look great, but I attributed that to the defense. Same with Vegas. He didn't really show up against Vegas. And when he did, it looked like he was trying to get penalties and get sent to the box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, him and Ryan Reeves got into it quite a bit, which a lot of people don't know this, but that goes back to the Western League when they played against each other.
Mm-hmm.
And they've had beef with each other, and yeah, I mean, I remember that game where he was in the box the majority of the game and then he got tossed. So
it's hard to think, but even if that's not the case, if he hasn't been betting, we'll find out. NHL's launching their own investigation. We'll see what they find. He's just a scummy person. I'm sorry if you're in Europe and you're partying with a mistress or a girlfriend and you're not even divorced and your wife's at home and your house is being taken and your child is starving, like, you're pretty scummy. Like, you're bottom of the barrel garbage. And I hope he plays in the NHL next year just so I can see someone like Tom Wilson or Ryan Reeves in that New York Rangers jersey lay him out, because he definitely deserves it. Calling your wife mentally unwell to try to make you look good is one thing. Like, there's things you don't air in public.
No.
I don't know how I feel about the wife airing it out on like Instagram, but
I feel like that was her only way.
Right, exactly. That was her only outlet. And so while it sucks that she had to air it publicly, I get it. And now Gary Bettman hopefully looks into this whole situation because we know, like what happened with the Blackhawks, he likes to sweep things under the rug as quick as possible. It's definitely a situation, and I'm kind of hoping we find out he gambled and gets kicked out of the league, because I don't like Evander Kane.
Well, and if anything has told me anything about, especially what's going on with the National Hockey League, considering the way Gary Bettman's handled himself with the Chicago Blackhawks scandal, which is probably one of the grossest stories I've ever heard in the National Hockey League. I mean, you guys want to talk about how, coaches were, coaching a certain way, like how Mike Babcock handled himself, Mark Crawford, and then you add the Evander Kane thing to it. I mean, you better take this. There better not just be a fine, because, and that's what drives me nuts about the whole 2017 Astros thing, is that there better not just be a fine. There better not just be, it's a suspension for 80 games or one season. No, dude, like, he should not be allowed to play in a game that other guys would kill for.
Yeah.
Like betting on yourself, betting on games, betting on your team. I mean, what kind of message does that send to your teammates in your organization?
Yeah. Oh,
Regardless if
100%.
it's not true. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't want you to play for me if those kind of speculations came to the surface. So,
Right.
and with the Chicago Blackhawks thing with Brad Aldrich, I mean, it's I think the NHL right now has a pretty black eye. It's
Yeah.
pretty big.
Yeah,
So
it is. And this just makes it so much worse. Especially if he gets away with it, which is very likely.
I'm gonna be so pissed. I'm not gonna lie.
But I mean, it's one thing to bet on yourself and your team to win, which is essentially what Pete Rose said he did. He always bet on his team to win the game. But when you're in sports and you finally embrace the gambling aspect of things, whether it's online gambling, sports gambling, FanDuel, um, anything like that. And the NHL has embraced it recently. I think a couple of their guys actually are faces for like FanDuel or BetZone or something like that.
DraftKings, something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
like you knew that this could be a thing. But I think they have to lay the hammer down here and say this is not acceptable. If you want to be part of that aspect, you can be an ambassador for it.
Mm-hmm.
But while you play our game, whether you're playing or you are in management, if you are affiliated with the club, you cannot be doing this at all. Like,
yeah.
So I'm really hoping something comes back, and I'm hoping the NHL lays it down, because they let the Blackhawk thing slide. They
with that currently, I know that there's more details that came to the surface that I'm sure you probably read about.
Mm-hmm.
But anyone who worked in that front office for the Blackhawks, since we're shifting gears here, should be gone.
Yeah.
They should not be working within the National Hockey League. I'll be very disappointed if Scotty Bowman knew. I think that, because I have such a big amount of respect for that guy. And if he knew, I'm going to be so disappointed, because he's my favorite coach of all time in the National Hockey League. I mean, Stan Bowman knew, Mark Bergevin knew, Joe Quenneville knew, and then you got guys bullying him on the ice. Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, Patrick Sharp knew.
Yeah.
Just the whole thing is just, it's very, very bad.
It's good seeing these things come to light, because for a long time, these athletes, they're told to keep quiet. They're told to go on about their day. And that's just, that's any sport. It's Olympic gymnastics, for example.
Man, it's horrible with that.
Yeah, with the whole Larry Nassar thing. And people just say, hey, you're an athlete, shut your mouth, do your job, don't worry about what other people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, we're getting the athletes that have this feeling now, like they're like, no, like I have a voice, I'm important, let me say what needs to be said, because this Blackhawk thing could have been swept under the rug and kept there and never seen the light of day if it wasn't for one person coming forward.
Well, and I think when you add all of the kids who came forward in the universities after he left the Chicago Blackhawks championship parade, he moved on to go to, I think it was the University of Miami, and then he went to the University of Michigan, where he also molested individuals. And that's another thing that I'm like, man, like the fact that they knew and that they let him go on to go and potentially do it to other individuals is so unforgivable, and it's shameful.
So what do you think the NHL has to do to get that black eye off of them? What do you think they can do to make themselves more friendly and appear like they're trying?
I think, obviously we want the most, drastic thing to happen, and the thing that, makes the most illogical sense is, you got to get everybody who is within that front office, and you have to tell them you're done.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that's the most fair. And I think that if you just let it get swept under the rug and this guy, Brad Aldrich, doesn't go to jail or anything doesn't happen, he just gets a big fat fine. Like, what are we learning from that? If this was some average Joe like you or me, where would we be?
Yeah.
Our ass would be in jail. We'd be on trial in 2 seconds.
Yep. Orange jumpsuit all the way.
Right. Because, these guys are professional athletes. They bring a lot to a sport and around the world, but that doesn't mean that the rules don't apply to you. And I think for the Chicago Blackhawks, Mark Bergevin needs to be stripped from his job. Stan Bowman, anybody who was within that front office should be just done. And those players, I say suspend them.
Yeah.
I think a suspension, not completely banning them from the game, but I think a suspension is the best thing, for the game, for that. It's setting an example.
Yeah. I agree with the management aspect. I think you find out who knew that you have definitive proof on, or you have, some sort of concrete evidence, and say, hey, you're done. You're done with the NHL. You're done with us as a whole. And like you said, suspend the players, lay that hammer down. Big donations to charities, get players out to events, and start like helping victims of, molestation and things like that. I think you have to go that route. I think they have to make a big deal about it. They have to, as much as they don't want to, I think you have to make a big deal about it. You have to make the punishment severe, and you have to say, hey, look, we take this seriously, but this is what we're doing, and this is how we're going to help the victims going forward. It's like the on another topic, the Montreal Canadiens drafted Logan Molyneux.
Yeah.
You heard that story, right? And that big deal. Asked not to be drafted because of everything going on, I think, in Sweden.
Said he was too immature for the time. He wasn't mature enough, and
right.
Mark Bergevin drafted him anyway.
Yeah,
signed him anyway,
and said we're going to help him and his victim mature. Like, I appreciate the sentiment of what Montreal is doing. Like, hey, we're drafting a young guy. He was young. He made mistakes. We're going to help him through it. And we're also going to help his victim. But at the same time, I think that's what needs to be done. Not in the Logan Molyneux case. I definitely think the Habs should have just let him go. And, the kid would have entered the draft again when he was ready. But the NHL needs to be along that lines of saying, hey, we're going to discipline our guys. We're going to get them the help they need to be better people. And then we're going to help our victims, and we're going to help them out any way we can, to obviously not forget what happened, but to help the healing process of what happened. Until then, the NHL, if this gets swept under the rug, we're looking at huge issues.
I think with this, it goes to show you how irrational, incompetent Mark Bergevin is.
Yeah.
Because it kind of lines up with me with the whole Chicago Blackhawks thing, since he was within the organization at that time. It's like, oh, we'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. But I'm not ready. Oh, but don't worry about it.
Right.
Well, he just told you he's not ready.
Right.
Like, why go ahead and push the envelope on that? Like, let the kid figure things out and go from there.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would not be surprised if years down the line we get a documentary series on the Blackhawks thing. Like
the 30 for 30.
Yeah, like a 30 for 30 thing. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. Or like, kind of like, I don't know if you saw the Return to Neverland, the Michael Jackson thing.
Yeah.
Like, I saw that, and I was like, whoa. Like, that was really, really hard to watch. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get something like that down the road when it comes to this. Because now when I look at, I was so happy for them when they won. And then when then all this came out, it completely tarnished it for me. It
Yeah.
completely did.
Well, they went through a lot in like the late 80s, early 90s with poor management, blacking out games and doing stuff to the local fans. And they
Hmm.
went through a lot. And then they finally built through the draft this dominant team. I mean, it was a dynasty.
Yeah.
They had what, 3 championships in 5 years. Kane was the face of the NHL. Taves was his sidekick. Marion Hossa finally got his ring. Like,
Hmm.
it was a nice story. And then, like you said, even I was thrilled. I mean, I got a Kane Winter Classic jersey. I got the Taves Shamrock St. Patrick's Day jersey. Like, I liked watching that team. And then hearing this, I don't have that same fondness for them anymore. You
No.
know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure, Kane's a great player, but I don't know if I respect him as I once did. In Taves, who is a guy who I thought was an A-class, A1 super citizen. I mean, if it comes out that he 100% knew what was going on and did nothing, it changes people's perspective of him.
Well, yeah, it grosses me out because when I think it was Puck Empire on Instagram who posted that Tays, Patrick Sharp, Duncan Keith, and Patty Kane all knew that was happening, and it was an open secret, and everybody just knew. Like, oh yeah, you went over to his place. Oh yeah, well, did he do this? Like what are you doing?
Yeah.
So that's all I'll say about it. But
Yeah. It's a tough situation, but let's see. We got everything. I think congrats to the USA on winning the Gold Cup in soccer, beating Mexico. U.S. women's national team went out in the Olympics to Canada. What else has happened? The Olympics are going on right now. USA's doing really well in some and not doing well in the others. I haven't been following because I don't care about the Summer Olympics that much.
I think the only Olympics I watched with my wife was the gymnastics with the Susie. I forgot her name. She's from Team USA.
Yeah, the girl that won the gold in the all around.
Yeah, she's incredible. Like, what an athlete! Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really care for the Summer Olympics. I watched it here and there, and the one that really grabbed my eye that I had no clue it was even a thing is handball.
Yeah,
I was like, handball. This is great.
I feel like I could play handball and be an Olympic athlete because I look at those. I was like, I could do that. I could run and throw a ball.
Yeah, it could be like handball beer league or something like that.
Right.
Like, dude, oh my god. Yeah. But I was telling my wife, I was like, man, I would love to see one handball team be the best NFL arms in the game versus the best MLB pitchers in the game, and just see how fast that ball is just going to go into the net. I mean, wow.
Right. Yeah. You get a guy like who's the kid from Jake Allen from Buffalo who just has that arm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then you get
Tom Brady. Like, I mean,
right. Against like a oh man, who's got the best fastball
right now? DeGrom.
Yeah. You think so?
I mean, he throws like 101, 102, but if I had to take one pitcher that would probably be super dominant in his prime, probably Aroldis Chapman.
Yeah, right. The
Holy crap.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. Imagine being the goalie trying to stop that. Like,
Lord.
Yeah. I want to see dodgeball make an Olympic sport. I think that would be really cool too.
That would be fun. But I think the thing I've been most disappointed with is the way it's televised. Like, the way NBC televises the games. Like, my wife and I were talking about it. I'm like, oh, who's this person? Who's that person? Like, they don't talk about it most of the sports enough. And then some people are like, oh, I didn't even know that was even in here. And but if you guys want to see all of the sports and everything, if you go on the Peacock app, it has everything, like all the highlights. It has all the sports and everything. So if you guys have Peacock, it's all on there. So
usually on Peacock, I'm watching The Office or Parks and Rec.
That's really all I do on that one. my go-to.
So, but no, I'll have to check that out because I was like, I want to watch the gymnastics stuff because I like watching that, all the flipping and tumbling. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else do we got? Nothing big in the NFL so far.
Nah,
Tom Brady got mad at his guys because they were tired during practice. Did you see that?
I did.
Threw his helmet, was really pissed off. I was like, that's Tom Brady for you. No days off.
That's a 6-time Super Bowl champion.
Yeah.
That's a guy who wants to win.
Yeah. So I was like, that's really cool. Let's see. Basketball, big contracts. Lakers signed some big pieces, bunch of old pieces.
They got Carmelo today.
Carmelo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I feel like if this was 2007, the Lakers would be no doubt NBA champions, but this is 2021 and they got a bunch of old guys on their team. I just don't know if they can run it.
Well, they got Westbrook. That was huge.
That's a big move.
I think last year it was just injuries. I think this year coming into it, I think the expectations are very high. I think with the team that they have now, and as long as they stay healthy, they could be winning the chip next year.
Yeah.
But I will say that, I mean, you got to face the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, they're coming back. I know Blake Griffin signed a deal.
Yeah, he signed to stay.
Yeah. I don't think the Suns, I mean, the Suns will be back, but I don't think that they'll be as a big contender like they were before.
Right. I think people got them figured out. They'll have the tape on how to stop them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, man, yeah, it's been a good week for MLB and NHL. Do you have any predictions coming up on NHL? Any big moves you see in the future?
I mean, I'm hoping, the Ducks get an offensive part. I've brought up Thomas Tatar many times. He's an unrestricted free agent right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's only 30 years old. He could play left or right wing. I hope that they get some offensive guys up there, and I hope that if they are going to make the move to get rid of Gibson, not really get rid of, that's a bad term, but just to move him to someone who's a contender, and that way we can have Anthony Stolares take the helm and have Dostal back him up. I think that's the right move for them. But big moves wise, I think they've already been made. I mean, I think Colorado, that's going to be one of the biggest moves. Like, who are they going to get to goaltend for them? Is Vegas going to get another center? I think that's another thing, especially with Tuck being out. I see Tampa three-peating. I mean, realistically, I do. I see them three-peating, and I see them, being that team that's going to solidify that, we're a dynasty. And I think the last team that went three-peat, I think, was Gretzky's Oilers, if I'm right, in the 80s.
Yeah, because
I think they went 3.
I was going to say, even the Penguins,
they only went 2.
Yeah, they went back to back, then lost, and then won. Yeah, I think it's Gretzky. I think it's Gretzky's Oilers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'd be the first team, and I think that would really stamp them into the dynasty, conversation and everything. I mean, you look at them on paper, and you're just like, I don't see anybody stopping you.
No,
I just don't. Like, as much as I wanted the Islanders to beat them, like, they're just not deep enough.
No, so, and they're not any deeper right now, losing Jordan Eberle. So, I mean, I the East, I'm not going to say is weak, but Tampa Bay is the team to beat. Coming out of the Eastern Conference. Vegas, I don't know, man. We just don't have. We signed, I think his name's Dadanoff from Ottawa, who had an off year last year, but he's a power play scorer. And I'm like, that's cool, man, but it doesn't matter if Pete DeBoer doesn't have a good power play scheme.
What's your guys? I'm trying to pull up cap friendly. Just
oh shit! Right now we're probably.
Oh yeah, you guys have no cap space.
Yeah, I was gonna say Tuck put us just under the cap space, putting on
with that LTIR.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of got to go with, with what you got. Unfortunately, that's and that's kind of the Ducks situation too last year. And I think that's the message that's being sent this year is that, I think we're just going to acquire picks and, because our prospects coming through are great. We just have to,
give them time to bloom.
We just got to ride it out. And I think that's the one thing that this is being sent to us, and that, Jeff Solomon being an executive to, being a GM, I think that he's going to take over for Bob Murray the following year. I think Dallas Eakins will be done after this year.
Okay.
But for the most part, I mean, there's nobody really in the West that stands out to me. I mean, obviously Colorado, but Colorado doesn't stand out to me now that they've lost their goaltender.
Right. And I mean, I'm sorry, Darcy Kemper isn't the same as Grubauer.
No.
Yeah, I think if Vegas needs to make a move, I think it's going to be for Eichel or Duchesne, and it's going to be a big trade. It's going to be probably Pacioretty, either Riley Smith or Marchessault, and then I like the young kid Peyton Krebs, but that's one of the pieces that they want for Eichel is Peyton Krebs. And I mean, I throw him in there, man. I'd be like, sure, I would rather take a known commodity like Eichel than an unknown in Krebs, who I don't know how he's going to turn out.
The biggest thing with who was the second name you said? You said Jack Eichel and who? Oh, Matt Duchesne. I wouldn't go down that road.
See, I wouldn't either, but Vegas,
I know.
They like the star, they like the big name, and he would make a splash for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think because looking at your guys' situation right now, I mean, you guys are going to have to sign Riley Smith the following. You're going to have to sign, unless you guys let him go, Matthias Janmark.
Yeah.
And
he
then
just signed this year for it.
And then Pacioretty, he doesn't come off the books till 23-24, and that's $7 million per, and that's something you guys could possibly move.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You have to package up a couple players for Eichel if that's the move. Because Eichel's making 9.5 or something. So
the only hurdle you'll have to run through with Pacioretty is he has a no move and no trade.
Yeah.
So he'd have to list the 10 teams that he's willing to go to. So, I mean, you might have to move, like you said. Marchessault has one too.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
He shares the same agent as Marc-Andre Fleury, and we know how Fleury's agent feels about Vegas. So, he might a move to a less than stellar Buffalo team, or a Nashville team where Duchesne, is coming off, and Pacioretty can be the face for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's true. Because I mean, right now, unrestricted free agent. I know we're running over time. Unrestricted free agents right now. I mean, you got Zach Parise, who's 37, and then you got David Backes, you got Brandon Dubinsky, you got James Neal, Travis Zajac, Matt Niskanen, and Thomas Tatar. And I mean, maybe sign one of those guys, but I mean, maybe sign Zach Parise to a 1-year deal. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I don't know where you guys are going to get the money. Maybe somewhere in LTIR. But yeah, or go for Tyler Bozak. He's a center and he's 35. Go 1 year, $1 million.
Would you guys be open to giving us Getzlaf?
Dude, I'd be open to give you him for a pack of smokes. Like that's
and retain his salary for us.
I would retain his salary. I'd just say, just go, please, just go. Like, and I think the biggest thing that Ducks fans look at me and they're just like, oh, that's hate. It's not hate. It's just I want to see a new starting point for this team, and that's the thing. Oh, he's grooming them. We don't know that.
No. Like, he could be the Brett Favre situation where he's like, I'm not training that guy. He's coming for my job.
That's and and I see things at like training camp, like it's out here at Irvine Great Park.
Mm-hmm.
When younger guys go up against him, my wife even notices it too. She's like, he looks like he gets pissed off and irritated with them because they're on his ass. And I'm like, I go, hello, like it's not like I'm making this shit up. Like, come on. So
he is Mr. Duck for those guys right now, and
Yeah.
It is sad as it is to see him go.
Is it
He
though?
he needs to go.
I mean, is it? That's the question I want to ask. Like most
It
fans,
it
is it?
is though.
Is it that sad?
It's an end of an era. I think it really is an end of an era for that version of the Ducks. Okay, I mean, I've told you he's my favorite Duck,
Yeah.
followed closely by probably Korea.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I would say Getzlaff is my favorite Duck, and yeah, I think it's an end of an era, and I think that's why a lot of people have a hard time letting go. They don't understand the business aspect of it. They don't want to lose that piece. So yeah, I think it is sad, but I think at the same time it's needed. You
Yeah.
know. So yeah, if you guys want to call Vegas and say, hey, we'll retain his salary and we'll give you guys Ryan, we'll take him.
Yeah. I mean, even if it was like 50-50 or 75-25, I mean, I'd be fine with either. And that's one of the biggest things is like I want to see him go win.
Yeah.
I don't want to see him stick around here and lose. And what this deal tells me is that it's he wants to stick around just so that way he can break the record and
Right.
and hit his 1,000 and everything. Now, my question to you, and this is where we'll finish: is he a Hall of Famer?
I'd really have to dig into stats and see.
I'm already one step ahead of you, so
I would say he's Eli Manning. He's borderline. I can see it going either way. To me, it's just going to come down to who's in the Hall of Fame class that year.
okay.
But off the top of my head, I think if he breaks that points record for the Ducks, then yes, I think he goes into the Hall of Fame. But I'd have to dig into the stats and really see.
Okay, so individually, he's won a lot of Team Canada gold medals, which honestly, if you put our ass on the bench, we could win one too.
Right. It's Canada.
I mean, the team is so loaded, and that's one thing I'm sick and tired of hearing about. And he's won one cup on a loaded 2007 team.
Right.
Yes, he led in 19 points. 2 points behind was Andy McDonald and Timo Solani. He's only, I think, like 10 points away from the record. And right now he is 18 games away. So he's 18 points away from 1,000. And so he's not that far away. He gets a few assists. That's going to be fine. But in my opinion, I don't think he is. But then again, Paul Correa is in the Hall of Fame. And a lot of people could argue, but he's not a Hall of Famer. He didn't win a cup. But he put the Ducks on the map.
Right.
That's the thing, is that Getzlaff didn't have to do that. Timu was already there. Scott Niedermayer was already there. Like, Jaguar. I mean,
you're right.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to put him in. I mean, I have a feeling they're going to. And to me, breaking a record that Timu wasn't there for the whole time, I feel like if Timu was there and he didn't go to San Jose and go to Colorado, I feel that the record could have been a little bit more out of reach. But I feel that because, and he's going to get his number retired, that's given. But I just don't see it. I don't.
Yeah.
With him, I don't see him as a Hall of Famer just because you won a bunch of Team Canada gold medals. I just don't see it.
Yeah, so. I've never been on the fence of, hey man, you have team awards, so you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. That, like I said, it's the Eli Manning situation. I don't think Eli is a Hall of Famer, but he has 2 Super Bowl rings, and that's why they'll put him in.
Yeah.
Even though those Super Bowl rings were on the back of defense. And he's a 500 quarterback. Like,
yeah.
I think Getzlaff's that same way. He has a bunch of awards, one with Team Canada, who, like you said, I can be the, 13th forward on that bench, and we'd win because of Crosby, Stone, Marchessault, and everybody else on Team Canada. And then a loaded Ducks team in 2007 with phenomenal goaltending by Jaguar. So, I lean towards I don't think he's there, but I think they'll put him in.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I could see, say for instance, Corey Perry wins 2 cups hypothetically with Tampa. Say he wins like another cup on top of his. I see him going in before. I could see Corey Perry going into the Hall of Fame before Brian Getzlaf because of that, not because of So.
He went to the finals with Dallas. No, they went out before then, huh? No, they were there.
Dallas made it. They lost.
Went to the finals with Montreal. So yeah, I think if he goes to the final with Tampa and wins a cup, I can see him getting in before Getzlaf, and it would be well deserved.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But, all right, man. Well, that was a nice podcast. Hour and 20. We got in a lot of stuff. Same time next week.
Yeah, same time next week.
Awesome, brother. Well, we appreciate everyone who tuned in to the This Is Sport a podcast. We appreciate Pittsburgh sports all the time, talking to me on the commentary. Again, follow us on Twitter at This Is Sport a Pod, Shenanigans82, Zachary 590029996.
I did not do that, by the way. They just gave that to me.
If you don't have time to watch, we are on Amazon Music, Google Podcast. I think we're on Spotify, Pandora, almost anywhere except Apple Music or iTunes, just because they're very difficult to get in. But hit us up, questions, comments, like, subscribe, anything you want us to talk about. Let us know in the comment section. We will be here same time next week. So everyone have a good week. We will see you later. Go Dodgers.
Yep. Take care, guys.